Hey everybody, this is Chris Addig with the Veterans Law Blog. We had a little bit of a glitch getting started here on the Facebook live stream today, so hopefully the video and audio is coming through great for you. If it's not, don't worry. When this video is all said and done, it's going to be posted up on Facebook. You can watch it as many times as you want, and after a couple of days I'll pop it up on the Veterans Law Blog. We'll give it its own page with hopefully many more videos to come in the future, where you can watch them and follow up. I've been a little bit leery about doing video like this, primarily because sometimes the information in these videos can go stale, meaning the VA rules can change, the regulations can change, and one of the things that I faced early on in my own claim was bumping against information that was 10, 15, 20 years old. So if you are watching this video, it's recorded here on October 14th, 2016. If it's anything older than a month, you're going to want to check out and make sure that some of the stuff that I share today is still current and valid. The best way to do that is as a premium member of the Veterans Law Blog at veteranslawblog.org. Also, organizations like Hadit.com has some great message boards, and then other places around the internet where you can find information and double check anything that you hear here. So my goal is to make the Veterans Law Blog the best resource for veterans battling the VA, whether they use a VSO to help them keep an eye on their VSO, whether they use an advocate like an attorney to keep an eye on that attorney, or in some cases there's a lot of VSOs or advocates that use the Veterans Law Blog for training. So we've got a pretty wide membership base, and I encourage you to get on and check out the membership. So I want to talk to you about a few things. So here's how we're going to go with this live stream. Hopefully it'll be about 20, 30 minutes long. We might run over. I have a tendency to yak, but we're really going to be talking as long as this Facebook live stream doesn't conk out on me here. So you can see behind me, it's kind of an overcast day here in Little Rock, Arkansas. That's the Capitol right there behind me. Normally can't see it because the sun reflects off, so we've got a nice little backdrop here. I'm actually here in Little Rock for a couple of weeks now. I've been out on the road quite a bit since the beginning of September. I was out in Tucson, Arizona, talking to a group of veterans exposed to Agent Orange in Thailand at one of the bases there known as Utapao. Before that, I was out talking in Colorado Springs to another group of Vietnam-era veterans to help them work through their claims. I went to Providence, Rhode Island, where I trained some attorneys on how to handle impairment rating issues and a whole host of other issues. And then this past weekend, I was out in Washington, D.C., and while I was there, had the opportunity to run in the Army 10-miler race. Now, those of you that don't know, the Army 10-miler race is a 10-mile race, as the name says, and it's a pretty historic race, not as big as the Marine Corps Marathon in terms of popularity, but there were 35,000 runners there. 35,000 people showed up to run. Met some really great people, some active military folks that are still there. Met some folks that are veterans, families of veterans, families of survivors. A lot of folks running for soldiers that were killed in a conflict here in Afghanistan, Iraq. Some even running in the memory of Vietnam and World War II veterans. So some great people. I actually I got there a little bit early at my start point and was talking with a young lady that had 37 years in the Army. She was a Chief Warrant Officer 5. And was actually, she's heading off to Afghanistan this week. So she's hoping it's her last tour in Afghanistan, and her thinking was if she volunteered, she wouldn't get voluntold, and as a result, she might get her first duty assignment choice after that in Hawaii, where she wants to retire. So, Chief, if you're watching, I doubt you are. You're probably on a plane already, heading over. But if you are watching, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers every single day. I hope you have a safe tour over there. God bless you for the work that you're doing in support of our nation and in support of the Special Operations troops that you're helping out over there. So, in any event, more about the Army 10 Mile. I ran for a group called Heroes on the Water, and Heroes on the Water is a fantastic organization. It's got its start in Dallas, Texas, and now they've got chapters all over the U.S. What they do is they take veterans who are recovering from the mental, emotional, and physical wounds of war, or combat or non-combat service. They take them out on a kayak for a day with other vets and do some fishing and talk about the things that vets need to talk through that oftentimes vets can only talk to other vets about. This organization does some pretty powerful work. A very good friend of mine, her husband lost his foot in Afghanistan and was having a real hard time recovering. He went out on a kayak, and he now refers to that day as his Alive Day. It's a pretty powerful organization. See a message coming up. I can't hear you. So if you can hear me, give me a thumb or a heart or something to signal that everybody can hear me and I'm not just talking into the wind there. If you can't hear me, be sure to post in the comments. But in any event, we raised about $1,025 for Heroes on the Water. My goal was to get to $5,000, so I'm going to keep that fundraiser open. In the show notes, which will be the very first comment after we stop recording this, in the show notes I'll place a link to the donation. If you could donate to that organization, $10, $25, $50, if you're feeling particularly generous, more, whatever you can afford would be greatly appreciated. All the donations go directly to Heroes on the Water. $25 donation to that organization provides tackle and gear for a day for the vets that are out there. $100 will provide a full day for a vet out there. So we're still trying to get to our $5,000 level. I want to put 50 vets out on the water with this fundraiser. Anything you can do to help will be greatly appreciated. To those that did donate, thank you very much. I know times are tight for a lot of us, and parting with a few dollars here or there, or sometimes in many of your cases, $100 or more, can be very difficult. I really, really wish that I could personally thank you for that donation. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to Heroes, and you've done a lot to save a veteran somewhere you may not ever even know this veteran, but thank you for your donation. Want to also talk to you, one of the big things we've had go on the Veterans Law blog was the launch of the new site design. So those of you that go all the way back, 10 years with me know that the Veterans Law blog started out as an email list. There were probably, a few dozen veterans who I coached on VA claims how to do this stuff through email. And I taught them how to get their C-files, how to read their C-files, how to analyze and study the law, how to protect their claim for their survivors, how to get the right impairment ratings. And so these vets eventually started emailing me and telling me that they were winning their cases based on this information. And so we created a blog. The blog launched, 2008, 2009 when we went on the blog itself, and since then it's just grown bigger and bigger. Now, this entire time was running on a shoestring budget so that all of the proceeds could go to all of the resources that we needed from the sale of books. I didn't start selling books, I don't think, till 2013 was when our first book went out. So a lot of this went out of my personal funds, which is fine. I don't care about that. But the point is, I was doing all the work designing this website myself. Now we're getting over 100,000 vets a month are visiting the Veterans Law blog, almost 60,000 here on Facebook. And my, amateurish design was not really working. And y'all were telling me that, saying you're having problems on the blog. So I took that stuff to heart, got with a professional designer, and had a professionally designed site, which we launched on October 6th. It's at veteranslawblog.org. Some of the great things that y'all are telling me that you really like about it are that there's a lot more white space. The posts are a lot easier to read. The information's a lot easier to find, whether it's the free information or whether it's the paid information. There's some more payment options on there too. We didn't used to accept PayPal for everything, now we do. And now for the first time I'm able to offer free trials, real honest free trials to the Veterans Law blog. I had to engineer a little tweak in the past where I would give access and whatever. It got real complicated, and those of you that know what I'm talking about know exactly what I'm talking about, how difficult it got. But now we have an honest-to-goodness free 7-day trial period. If you want to become a premium member on the Veterans Law blog, you can sign up monthly or annually. Those links will be in the show notes. And for 7 days, I'm not going to charge your card. Get on there, take a look, explore the resources, fully use the blog for 7 days. It's free. Get on there, find out if it's right for you. If it's right for you, keep it if you want. If you don't think it's right for you, go ahead and cancel. No hard feelings, I don't care. But if you do cancel, let me know why, so that I can make this the best resource for veterans battling the VA. That's really important to me, to make sure that we have a resource going forward where we don't have to rely on outdated information, where we can collect all these rules, regulations, and stuff together, as well as practical tips that you can't find anywhere else. I do this work for a living, and anytime I figure out a new tip, trick, or guideline, I'm sharing it on the Veterans Law blog. If it works for me, if I find a path through this muddled process that the VA has, I'm going to share it with you. Getting some great feedback on the new blog design. Take a look at it. If there's ways to make it better, I need you to tell me. The best way to tell me is to send me an email at support@veteranslawblog.org. I do give priority to those folks that are members, but I do try to answer everything. The only questions I can't answer are questions pertaining to legal advice. If you ask a question that's real specific about your case and I can only answer it specifically, this Veterans Law blog is not a law firm. We don't give legal advice. My goal is to teach you how to do your own claim better, or to give you the information that you need. So I won't give out legal advice. If you didn't get a response, that may be it. But give it a few days right now, because of all my travel. The last 45 days, I'm kind of falling behind a little bit. So I will get responses out to you. But feel free to shoot me an email at support@veteranslawblog.org if you have any ways that I can improve this site or make it better for everybody. So that said, we're going to jump into some questions. So I put out an email this morning, and I also posted on Facebook asking for some ideas or things that you wanted me to talk about, and I was flooded, over 100 responses. So certainly can't answer 100 questions. Well, I mean, I could. But then my wife will get really hacked at me because we're going to miss out on date night tonight. So I'm going to look through all the questions, and I culled it out to a few that many of you had in common, and I'm going to answer those questions here. If I don't get to your question, don't worry. I keep a list, and I'm keeping those questions going. We will put them in a future Q&A here live. I might put them into a blog post. We might record a full-length video for you on them, but I will get information or answers out as much as possible on all the questions that I get. So let's just jump right in. So this first question comes from Dave H., and I'm going to read it here because it was a pretty good question. Dave asked, after a compensation and pen or a CMP exam, tell us how the process works, and at what time does a medical doc or a PA enter into the picture? Is it an individual process, or is it a group consult before a disability is awarded? How many times is the award reviewed prior to the person applying? Thank you, Dave H. So that is a great question. And there's not a lot of transparency in the process that goes on behind the scenes at the VA once a comp and pen exam is scheduled. So let me tell you what I know. I hit the high notes for you here. For those of you that don't know, a CNP exam or a compensation and pension exam is a unique type of exam offered by the Veterans Benefits Administration. When you file a claim, the VA is typically going to offer an exam for one of two major reasons. There's other reasons, but these are the two big ones. The first one is to determine if your current disability is related to, or if there's a nexus back to military service. The second reason is to determine what level of impairment you have. That level of impairment translates into a percentage, which translates into a dollar amount. So the CMP exam, in a nutshell, either does one of two major things. It's either going to help establish or, in most cases, find that there's not a connection between military service and a current disability. And the second thing is it's going to help establish a rating. After your exam is concluded, you go into the exam. I have not known of any group exams. They're all individualized, one-on-one. Everybody's experience is different. There's multiple types of exams. Sometimes the VA docs do them. Sometimes they have private contract docs do them. And sometimes they use a process called the ACE process, which is the acceptable clinical evidence, which is just a record review and opinion where you never go in for an exam. So how long it takes after that process largely depends on what type of exam you have. But generally speaking, once the doctor completes the exam, and they literally do dozens of these things a day, they're going to type up their exam notes and they ship them back to the VA regional office, most cases electronically, but that's not entirely the case all the time. And so those exam notes get back to your rater on your case. Now, what the rater does with them at that point is what they should do is consider them, evaluate them, weigh the facts, weigh the evidence. But in the end, what they basically do is they copy and paste from those exam opinions. And that becomes the decision. So if the doc says it's not related to military service, the rater almost 100% of the time is going to cut and paste and put those into the decision. Now, if the doc says that you're 10% for PTSD, the raters, these guys and gals ain't trained in medical stuff. And I don't mean that as a dig on them. I'm just saying there's no medical training to really understand how things equate in terms of a symptom to a rating. So they're pretty much just going to rely on what that doctor says. So what that means is it's especially important that you prepare for your compensation and pension exam. In the past, the advice that veterans get is, don't take a shower, don't shave, show up unkempt and look bad, and then they'll give you the biggest rating possible. And frankly, I'm going to curse here. I'm sorry, it's Friday and I'm in a good mood. That's a bunch of horseshit. To prepare for a comp and pen exam, there's a lot of things that you got to do. I write a 3-part series on the Veterans Law blog that talks about the 3 phases of preparing for a comp and pen exam. I'm going to post that in the show notes. From practical tips for getting ready to how to talk to the examiner to what to do afterwards. And that's really important. After the exam is over, you're going to want to use the FOIA process, the Freedom of Information Act, to get a copy of your compensation and pension exam notes so that you can take the time to understand what's coming down the pike in that decision. I show how to do that in my C-File field manual. That C-File Field Manual is available in the bookstore on the Veterans Law blog. You can pick up a copy. I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes, and I'm also going to put in a coupon code. If you watch this video, if you put in this coupon code, you get $5 off the cost of the book at the point of purchase. That will be in the show notes as well. It is an individualized process, though. The rater, however, is limited in certain ways by his chain of command or his supervisory levels in how much he or she can award. So let's say that your amount of your past due benefits is going to be $25,000 or less. In most cases, the VA rater is going to be able to approve that without getting any review beyond his initial supervisor. But when you start getting into six-figure past due awards, these things have to get approved up the chain of command at the VA, and so it can take a considerable amount of time. So sometimes delay is good after a comp and pen exam. In most cases, it's not, because it means they're not doing anything with it. But the bottom line is it can take some time to go through that review process. What do you do while you're waiting? Get the comp and pen exam. Get a copy of it using FOIA. Call up the medical center. If you got your exam at a medical center, call up the facility where you got the exam. Get their business card while you're there and just ask for a copy of it. Sometimes they'll direct you back to the VA. Sometimes they'll give you a copy. Everybody's practice is a little bit different. But definitely get a copy. And then prepare. If you see a bad exam when you get that back, if you know you're about to get denied, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to challenge that examiner's credentials. So basically, an examiner has to be competent to testify as to nexus or impairment rating. And what that basically means is they've got to know what they're talking about. The VA a lot of times sends us to physician's assistants, registered nurses, not necessarily trained in doctors that aren't necessarily trained in the particular field. You know, we saw a dentist once do an exam on TBI. I don't know how that worked out, but didn't do a very good job, although I'm sure he's a fantastic dentist. But in any event, we've seen all those different things. You want to make sure you challenge the examiner's credentials in your notice of disagreement. It's very important because the courts told us if you don't challenge it that early, the VA is under no obligation to share those credentials with you. So if you've got an internist that's given an opinion on a very difficult claim like chronic multi-symptom illness from Gulf War syndrome, you're going to want to challenge that. And so I'm going to give you that language. There's a blog post where you can just cut and paste it right out of there. I use it in my own cases all the way up. Make sure it shows up in your NOD and VA9. That post will be linked in the show notes. So hopefully that answered your question. Kind of a good overview of the CMP exam process. Read those posts that talk about how to prepare for it. If you go through an exam and find that there's something that I should have put in there to talk to you about getting ready for a CMP exam, please let me know. I want to make that better. But a lot of vets have used that to prepare for the exam and have gotten good results from it. So let's move on to the next question. How far in are we? Oh, we're doing good on time. We're doing good. Next question is from Sally A. And Sally A asked, well, she asked a couple of questions. I'm going to hit one of them really hard here. Here's her question. She said, please mention 1151 claims. Recently, I met several accredited agents and VSOs in the New England area who have never heard of these claims. So let's spread the word. So Sally, I'm very happy to help with that. So here's the deal. When you file a claim for disability compensation from the VA, you have to show that your current medical condition is related back to your military service. That right there is the crux of what is meant by service connection. Your current disability, your current medical condition is related to your military service. And there's 5 ways to do it. And I've written an entire field manual on this, an entire book called the Service Connection Field Manual. I'm going to put the link to that in the show notes. You'll get a coupon code with $5 off for watching this video. But that book is going to go into depth into all 5 of those legal theories. You should raise as many of them as you can in your claim. All right? Even if you think you've got a lockdown, nailed tight presumptive service connection claim, argue direct, argue secondary, argue aggravation, argue all of them. That's my little rant on that. Check out the book, learn about all of them. One of them, so here's the 5. Direct service connection is directly related. Secondary, a condition that you have service connected caused another medical condition which was not related originally to military service. Aggravation, a condition you had either before military service or since military service but is not service connected, is aggravated by a service connected condition. The next one is presumptive, where the law says we're just going to assume that because you have this condition and this nature of service, that you are service-connected for these disabilities. That's the 4th. The final one is called Section 1151. Section 1151, it comes from 38 U.S.C. 1151, and it basically says, and I'm going to defer to the statute because it's real specific, but basically it says that if you are injured in the course of VA-sponsored medical care or a vocational rehab program that the VA has you on, if you have a disability or injury that results from that, then you can get that condition rated as if it was service-connected. So it's not true service connection, and that's an important distinction for a whole host of reasons that I'm not going to go into here. But the bottom line is that if you're injured in medical care, you go in, let's say you go in for a colonoscopy and the doctor punctures something while he's doing the colonoscopy. Very, very common thing at the VA. I don't know why they can't do colonoscopies. But in any event, if you go into, hey, Randall Surratt just joined there. So how you doing, sir? Nice to see you there on the live stream here. I went to law school with Randy. In any event, great guy. Got off track. If you're injured in the course of VA medical care or a voc rehab program, then you can get benefits from the VA as if you were service connected. So you also have a kind of a related claim there that I would be remiss to fail to mention, and it's a federal tort claim. Basically, if the VA is treating you for a medical condition and as a result of that you get a disability, you may have a claim for negligence on the part of the doctor. As you know, the example I gave you, getting punctured during a colonoscopy is a very common negligence claim in most states. But the federal government has very specific rules that you have to follow if you're going to sue a federal government doctor for negligence, and that's called the FTCA. So a lot of times when you have an 1151 claim, then you also have a tort claim. Now, those are really complicated. I'm not even going to start going into that right here because we could spend days on that. There's not a lot of attorneys that do those types of cases, and I strongly don't normally recommend this. Most vets can handle most generic service connection claims on their own with a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of information and a little bit of elbow grease. When it comes to an FTCA claim, though, do not try that crap on your own. Seriously, get an attorney. There's a really, really awesome one. I'm going to give you 3 names here. Links to their websites will be up in the show notes, so don't worry about writing it down right now. The first one is Erin Steffin. Erin is a second-generation FTCA lawyer. Her mom, Jeannie, goes back many, many, many years, has done a lot of these cases. She does tremendous work. Another one is Ben Krause, does some work up in Minnesota with the Federal Tort Claims Act. And then Glover Luck is a firm out in Dallas, Texas that does a lot of federal tort claims work. So their links to their websites will be in the show notes. Don't worry about that. But basically, if you are injured in the course of a voc rehab program or in the course of medical treatment for a disability through the VA and you're injured and disabled as a result of that, you have a potential 1151 claim where you can possibly get that treated as if it were service-connected and get benefits. Be mindful you also have a federal tort claim suit potential for negligence on the part of the VA medical staff. So I think that covers everything on that question. Thanks for asking that, Sally. That's a great one. 1151 claims are not very common. Well, they are common, but they're not very commonly talked about. So I'm glad we were able to hit that. All right, the next question comes from an anonymous veteran, and here it is. It says, how can I find an attorney to help me file my appeal from a service-connected disability where the combined evaluation is 20%? I got 10% for tinnitus and 10% for PTSD due to a military sexual trauma. So tinnitus, for those of you folks that don't know, I'm sure every veteran knows what tinnitus is. 90% of us have it. It's ringing in the ears from damage to something in the ear canal there. Really superficial explanation there, really, really basic, but that's what that is. Tinnitus is ringing inside the ear, and most all of you know what PTSD and military sexual trauma are. First and foremost, what I would tell you is this. When it comes to VA PTSD claims, there's one attorney that I think is just head and shoulders above others. He's what I call the VA PTSD Guru. Many of you watched his video interview that we did about maybe 3.5 weeks ago when I was up in Rhode Island. I had a chance to sit down and do a 15-20 minute video interview on Facebook with him. So if you'd like, go watch that video. He talks about some of the very things that are asked in this question. It's at veteranslawblog.org/Matt, M-A-T-T, and that's Matt Hill, is the attorney that I call the VA PTSD Guru. He, through an arrangement with the blog, he is agreeing that if you fill out a questionnaire on that site and attach your ratings decision denying your claim, he'll take a look at it, see if he can help. If he can't, he can't, but he'll take a look and see. So go to that website, take a look. There's nobody, if I had a PTSD claim, there's probably no other attorney I'd trust with it other than Matt. That's not to say other attorneys that do PTSD are bad. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that I really trust Matt and really like the work that he does. I've known him for a good long time. More importantly, the bigger question that comes in there is, how do you choose an attorney for your VA claim? So let's start from here. Veterans have what they've never had before in history, which is choice, the opportunity to choose the representative that they want. So for years and years and years, veterans were either forced to do it on their own, or they were forced into a funnel of having one of the big VSOs do it for them. In 2007, the law passed to allow attorneys to help with certain claims once they've been denied, and so now veterans have a lot more choice, and I think veterans should exercise that choice. And so I don't encourage the hiring of an attorney. I don't encourage the hiring of a VSO. I don't encourage doing it yourself. I tell you have those options, and I teach you how to best choose within those options. And that's what's important when it comes to finding an attorney. If you decide to go that route, you need to make the best choice that you can. And so what a lot of veterans do is they get on the Google and they search VA claims attorney, and whoever comes up first is the one they pick. Other veterans, throw out a bunch of consultation requests to a bunch of firms, and the first one that calls them back, they go with that one. And yet others, hear about this attorney that did great things in this veteran's case, and so they go with that attorney. And those are probably okay ways to find an attorney, but you're not going to find the best attorney for your claim doing that. The best way to find an attorney for your VA claim is to put some research, to put some time into it. I think personally, before I would ever hire an attorney to help on my own VA claim, I would talk to at least 3 attorneys, literally talk to them about the case, because every attorney is different. The way we approach cases, the way we think about cases, the style that we use. I know an attorney that is just, probably one of the most aggressive, they probably in the old days would have called him a bulldog or a pit bull. Goes after the VA, and just latches on until he gets every last penny out of it. I know others that take kind of a more step back, holistic approach and say, what are we trying to accomplish for this veteran? What is the end result that the veteran wants to accomplish? And how we do it within, those parameters, there's still many, many ways to work these cases. And so you want to find an attorney whose style matches yours. You want to find an attorney whose work is going to be what you want it to be, that's responsive to you. And so how do you do that? I've written a book, and it's free. You can get on, and I'll put the link in the show notes. There's a link where you can get a free ebook that will walk you through and show you how to choose an attorney. I talk to you about everything about what fees can be charged legally, what fees are illegal. I talk to you about what sort of experience the attorneys should have that work for you, some bare minimum levels of experience. I talk to you about what sort of certifications to look for, what kind of training to look for, what type of experience to look for. I talk to you about all those things. I also give a huge 30-question questionnaire. I think it's actually more than 30 questions. I keep adding to it every time we re-release that book. But there's a lot of questions that you can ask in an attorney interview. Not necessarily because you're going to grade them on the answers, but you're going to grade them on how they answer. So if you ask an attorney what kind of experience they have with your Gulf War syndrome claim, and they start barking back at you, how do you question my experience, that probably is not going to be the attorney for you. So you're going to want to look for answers to those questions. You can get them in that free ebook. We have that also available as a paperback book. It's going to show up backwards here because this camera is pointing back at me. So it's actually written in forwards English. That's not that funny of a joke anyway. But you can get this, because it's published as a paperback, you got to pay a few bucks for it to have it shipped out and whatnot, and I'll put the link for that as well up there. But if you want it for free, it's available for free as an ebook on the Veterans Law blog. But take a look at that. Use that as your guide for choosing an attorney, because there are some really good ones out there. I think the VA accredited like 16,000 attorneys since 2007. It might be even higher than that by now. There's only about 400 to 450 of us that are active in this practice area, and within that, there's a much smaller core group that really focuses on this as their day-to-day bread and butter. This is how they make their living. This is the profession that we've chosen. I'm in this not for the money, obviously. I'm in this to do right by my brother and sister veterans, so I'm looking for cases that allow me to do that. Other veterans, other attorneys out there have different reasons. Some like PTSD claims, some like IU claims, some like Gulf War, some do not like working with Vietnam and World War II era vets, others love it. Nothing against any eras of veterans, just different people work differently. So find the attorney that's right for you. Hope that answered the question there. All right, last question. This is kind of a big one. And it was actually one of the most common questions that was asked of all the feedback that I got. First variation on it was this, one person asked, and asked to remain anonymous, said, the policy of the Obama regime is to deny FOIA access to my C-file, what do I do? And then another one just wanted to know the steps to get a C-file. So let me just answer this first of all. We live in a very politically charged environment right now, and it's, pretty much if you're on the left, you want to blame the right. If you're on the right, you want to blame the left. We're all pointing fingers. I'm here to tell you that this is a politics-free zone, okay? The bottom line is Obama ain't responsible for the problems with the C-file. Bush ain't responsible for them. Clinton ain't responsible for them. You might go all the way back. We could probably blame Nixon. We could probably all agree to blame Nixon for everything, right? It's a joke. Anyway, some of you guys will get that. But in any event, it's not an Obama problem. It's a VA problem. The VA cannot manage this system. They've got a database that was built in the early 90s off of a program that nobody in the computer technology industry even recognizes as being even remotely relevant anymore. And they recently just shifted to that from paper. So they have this, 3 million vets out there, somewhere between 3 and 21 million vets are filing claims for service-connected disability compensation. And every one of them has a claims file, and the VA can't keep tabs on them. So I have written a book called the VA C-File Field Manual, and that's going to walk you through the steps I'm going to tell you about here in a minute. It's going to give you all the forms you need to request your C-File. It's going to give you everything that you need the whole way through. It's also going to walk you through how to get your comp and pen exams using FOIA, and it also gives you some tools there, which we're going to improve. We're improving these tools here shortly that show you how to somebody just walked in the office, so I'm just asking them to, if you could just go on to that door right over there and knock. In any event, sorry about that, folks. The manual also has some tools that you can use to help break down your C-file and study it. We're going to make those tools better. I've got something I want to share with you. We have it in a computer database right now that's absolutely useless to you, but I'm trying to break it down to a paper system so that you can figure out how to analyze your C-file once you get this 2,600-page behemoth in the mail. But bottom line, here's the process. It's all laid out with the forms in the C-file field manual. I'll put the link up there. I'm going to give you a coupon code so you get $5 off the book if you buy it today. But here's generally what you do. The first thing that you do is you file a FOIA Act request, Freedom of Information Act request, asking for your C-file. And you file that with, you can file it with the regional offices. They're going to forward it up to the Record Management Center in St. Louis. And by law, the VA has 20 days to respond, 20 business days. They never do. They never do. So what you do at that point is you file a FOIA appeal with the Office of General Counsel in Washington, D.C., and they also have 20 business days to respond. They never do. They send out some goofy form letter saying, usually 6 years later, saying that they got the appeal and they're going to process it. And really what they're doing is, some attorney is stacking it up under their chair so that they sit a little higher up in their desk, I assume. But in any event, the next step after that, if you request it and appeal it and you still don't get it, is to file a lawsuit in federal district court. It's the one opportunity a veteran has to go into federal district court to sue the VA, and my firm has done that several times for repeated FOIA violations. Before you do that, I would recommend, if you've been waiting more than, I would say more than 60 to 90 days for a C-file, because a lot of vets are requesting them, and it's fair to give the government a little bit of time to do them. But if you've been waiting more than 60 to 90 days and you're not getting it, you're almost going to have to file that FOIA lawsuit. Now, you can get the fees in federal district court waived. I've got all the forms in the book, so you don't have to do a whole lot of legal, juggling around to figure this stuff out. But I want you to email Secretary of the VA, Bob McDonald, before you do that, because he's got an office up there that's kind of helping to route some of these issues. And I want him to be aware that, again, they're telling vets it's 2 or 3 years to get a C-file, which is, again, excuse my cursing, it's bullshit. But email Bob McDonald. His email will be in the show notes. Send him an email. Be polite. Bob's a great guy. He's dealing with the bureaucracy just like all of us are. I think he's really trying hard to do good things. He ain't perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I've got a couple of bones I want to pick with him. But his office is fairly responsive to these sorts of things, so give that a try. But you're going to have to file a FOIA lawsuit if they're not responding to you by appeal, and that's just the way of it. If you can find an attorney that does FOIA work, I'm happy to give them the tools to work through it. Heck, they could probably look up my law firm and Pacer and pull down all the pleadings that they need to do it, and they'll be able to get their attorney's fees. So you could be able to talk them into doing it with no cost up front. But hopefully that helps. The C-file is really important to get. The very first thing I tell every single veteran that says, how do I do this? I need help with this. I can't figure out this, is I say, do you have your C-file? If you don't have your C-file, you're wandering through the dark. You really are. We had one vet a long time ago that came to me and said that he'd been fighting. He was a Vietnam vet, boots on the ground in Vietnam, exposed to Agent Orange, had diabetes. Those are all presumptives right there. That claim typically does not take very long in the VA because it's so straightforward and so simple. But he'd been waiting years. And so I said, well, let's take a look at your C-file. So we got a copy of his C-file, looked at it, and I called him up and I said, listen, man, there is no evidence that you've been diagnosed with diabetes. None whatsoever in the file. This whole file, 2,600 pages long, where he'd done everything to show all the boots on the ground in Vietnam, all the years that he'd had service in the Republic of Vietnam, all the things that he'd done. He showed a whole host of different things for other conditions, but there was never any diagnosis record in there. And so I said, go to your doctor, have him write down the date he diagnosed you, send that on into the VA, and it shouldn't be a problem after this. And within a few weeks, he was granted service connection. So, but he'd been fighting for years and years and years to try to figure out what he was doing wrong, and the only way that he found out was getting a C-file. C-file, somebody asked, what is a C-file? It's a claims file. Theoretically, anything that you file with the VA from the day you get out of service until the day you pass away is going to go into your claims file. That's another story for another day, because that is, I was about to say something. It's a Charlie Foxtrot when it comes to C-files, how it's working right now. So make sure you get it. There's a lot of stories of a lot of vets who are getting their claims denied because the evidence in the C-file belongs to another veteran, okay? So that may be another reason. Get your claims filed. I don't know how many of you guys have seen the Leslie Nielsen's old thing he did about 20 years ago. It was the rules of golf. And he had one thing. He said, here's the 3 rules of golf. Keep your head down. Keep your darn head down. Keep your darn stupid head down. So 3 rules of addict getting a VA claims is get your C-file, get your darn C-file, get your darn stupid C-file. So get it. That should be the very first thing that you do. Anyway, that's about it for today. I talked an awful lot there. I need a cup of coffee, so I'm going to sign off here. Listen, I'm going to go through the comments that you guys have posted while this video is going on. I can't, they've been flying up here. I can't keep track of them all and talk at the same time. I will do my best to answer as many as I can. Look for the show notes so you can get all the links to all those books, the coupon codes. You can get links to the blog posts that I've mentioned throughout here. And if you have any questions about anything I said in here, support@veteranslawblog.org. Listen, I had a great time hanging out with you guys. As I get more used to this, we're going to do a little bit more interactive stuff. So I apologize if you're just sitting there watching my, ugly mug talk. Hopefully you got a good view of downtown Little Rock here. But in any event, we'll try to do it a lot more interactive in the future as I get used to this platform. Y'all have a great weekend. Until next week, enjoy your weekend. Get out and do something fun. Forget about the VA for a while. Take care.